All right, so I want to discuss some limits that may exist on a lost income claim under human rights cases. And this is different from, again, from wrongful dismissal cases. So the basic precept of a lost income claim in human rights is one that's designed to make the employee whole. That is, once you show an adverse treatment due to human rights, the remedy is intended to put the person back into the position that he or she would have been in had the unlawful action not taken place, presuming a termination in this case. And the law is different from wrongful dismissal concepts in this regard. Earlier I said, hey, there's been some cases up to 10 years, 14 years. That's true, but they're not all so gracious. And there's some qualifiers that are different, and it's important to understand them because of this make whole concept. For example, let's suppose the employer says, yeah, I did fire Mary because she was a woman, but guess what? Our business was going to experience economic problems 3 months after she was fired, and she would have been laid off in any event. Now, you may think that's odd, but that will limit the claim made to the date of the layoff. So the economic claim is going to be only intended to put the person back into the position they would have been in. And had they been there, if the employer can show, well, we would have laid her off in any event, that's going to limit the claim. Similarly, I mentioned earlier that if there's an employment contract that exists, they say it's got 2 months to run, and the employer says, yeah, I fired her because she was of a racial background I didn't like, then again, the lost income claim is only going to take it to the date of that contract period. So these issues at least are distinct, not all different from wrongful dismissal, but many are. Another example is when the individual had announced his retirement, or he or she said, hey, I'm going to retire in June, have made plans to retire and take their pension and everything else. It doesn't have to be at age 65. It could be earlier or later. And the employer then will argue, yeah, I did fire Harry because I didn't like his religion, but he told me he was going to retire. Everybody knew he was retiring, and that will define the lost income claim. And there are even cases in which the employer has successfully argued, yeah, I did fire Mary because of whatever reason, but her performance was horrible. We've documented performance issues for the last 2 or 3 years, as an example, and she would have been fired in any event for cause. And these cases have actually succeeded. Other cases in which the employee has suffered some kind of emotional problem because of the termination, let's say race or religion, whatever, and the employee had suffered emotionally and claimed lost income to the date of the hearing, the employer may argue, yeah, okay, you did suffer some emotional trauma that prevented you from working, say for a year or two, but after that there are other problems you had in your life that caused additional independent emotional issues, which if those had not happened, you would have been able to return to work. And these arguments have all been considered and some have been accepted. So the point of all this is that these are different considerations. Some of them are different considerations from a wrongful dismissal claim. So when you predict which avenue or assess which avenue you want to follow, be mindful of these issues. Let's take the layoff, for example. So the employer says, yeah, I fired Mary because she was a woman, but she was going to be laid off anyhow in 2 months. Well, in a wrongful dismissal case, that wouldn't matter. So in a wrongful dismissal case, if the notice period were 1 year or otherwise, that doesn't matter that the employer had intended to lay her off. She'd get the full year. So you got to sit down and understand and analyze the differences before you make a decision. And it's not all roses and rainbows for an economic loss under a human rights claim. You got to be mindful of these issues and be careful how you pursue them. So heads up and understand your rights, and then go sue the bastard.